What would you do if the only thing keeping you alive was revenge, and the first step toward it led you to a girl trapped in a cage? Elijah Crane rode into Gallows Hollow beneath a sky that felt as cold as the grave he had buried his wife in. The clouds hung low and heavy above the crooked little town, refusing to break, refusing to move, almost like they were holding their breath. It had been 3 weeks since he lost her, yet the world still looked dim, gray, and stripped of anything soft. He rode slow, dust rising behind his horse, and not a single dog barked as he passed. People peeked from their windows but didn't greet him. They saw the grief in his shoulders, the fire in his eyes, and they knew better than to say a word. Elijah was a worn man of the frontier. His hands still carried faint stains he couldn't wash off, the memory of red that wasn't dirt. His wife had died in his arms, taken by a group of riders who burned his cabin and left nothing behind but ashes. He held her as she bled out, saying her name over and over, begging for breath that never came. That memory followed him like a shadow. Now he had come for a rifle, not a normal one, not a store-bought repeater with loose parts and faded metal. He wanted a rifle with purpose, one clean enough to deliver justice without missing, one that could end a man from far off. In this small, dying town, there was only one man who made such rifles, Harlan Pike. Folks said he used to work for the government before the whole world slipped loose, said he was strange now, said his guns shot straighter than a lie. Elijah stopped in front of Pike's shop, a crooked building sitting between a dry well and a rusted water trough. Metal scraps and broken stocks lay scattered like bones. A crow hung nailed upside down above the door, its wings stiff and black with age. Elijah pushed the door open. Heat hit him first, thick and sharp with the smell of metal and burning. The forge roared somewhere in the back, but the main room was quiet. Rifles lined the walls in neat rows, each one polished clean. Tools covered work tables. Springs and bolts glimmered like tiny teeth. Elijah took a slow step inside. No one came, no voice greeted him. He waited, hand on his belt, listening. Then he heard it. A small rustle. Not metal, not fire. Something else, something human. He followed the sound toward the far corner of the shop, weaving around crates stacked high. And then he saw her. A girl sat in a cage, bolted to the floor. Iron bars welded thick, a padlock big as a fist holding the door shut. She was barefoot, dress torn at the hem, dirt in her hair. Her face was young, too young to be sitting in a place meant for punishment, maybe 20 at most. She hugged her knees, watching him with steady eyes. Not scared, not pleading, just waiting. Elijah froze. There was a chair beside the cage, worn down in the center from someone sitting there often. A ledger lay on a crate beside it, pages filled with names scratched out. He didn't like the look of it. "Who did this to you?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her gaze didn't even flick away. Bootsteps crunched on gravel behind him. Elijah turned. A tall, thin man stepped out from the back of the shop, wiping grease on a rag. His hair was gray, his beard thin, his eyes sharp as broken glass. Harlan Pike. "She ain't for sale," Pike said, voice rough. Elijah said nothing. His hand stayed close to his belt. "And she ain't yours," Pike added. "You came for a gun, I got one ready. But the girl stays." Elijah didn't look away from him. "You built that cage." "She earned it," Pike replied. "Is she a criminal?" Pike smiled a strange, cracked smile. "No. She's something worse." Elijah turned back to the girl, still quiet, still watching him like she already knew which way the wind was blowing. "I came for a rifle," Elijah said, "and I'll take it, but I'll be taking her too." Pike laughed, a short, dry sound. "You think revenge makes you brave. She ain't your justice. She's just a girl caught in the fire." "I don't care." Pike stepped closer. His hands didn't shake. Elijah knew right then the man had killed before. And he knew Pike was about to kill again. Pike drew first. Elijah was faster. The shot cracked through the shop like thunder trapped in a coffin. Pike fell forward, hitting the ground hard, blood spreading fast beneath him. He didn't scream. He didn't reach for the gun again. He just lay there, broken on his own floor. Elijah waited for feeling. None came. He walked to Pike's body and took the key from the man's belt. The metal was cold against his palm as he knelt by the cage. The girl inside stood slowly, eyes never leaving his face. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't relieved either. She was something else. He unlocked the cage. The door swung open with a heavy click. She stepped out like she had been waiting for that sound her whole life. No hesitation. No fear. Her bare feet touched the shop floor, and she walked past the dead man without even glancing at him. "You got a name?" Elijah asked. She stopped, turned her head just enough to look at him. "Sabine," she said. Just that. Nothing more. Elijah nodded. Something settled inside him, heavy and certain. He came for a rifle. Instead, he walked out with a girl whose eyes looked like she had survived hell and was ready to walk back into it. And Elijah Crane? He found himself following her without knowing why. Elijah and Sabine rode east beneath a sky that still refused to break. The clouds hung heavy and low, like the world was holding back a storm on purpose. They said nothing at first. Elijah didn't know what to ask. And Sabine wasn't the kind who filled silence with words. She rode behind him on the same saddle, arms lightly around his waist, steady, calm, almost too calm for someone who had just stepped out of a cage and walked past a dead man without blinking. By the time they reached a dried creek bed, the sun was dipping behind the hills. Elijah set a small fire. Sabine sat across from him, cross-legged, hair braided loosely, eyes fixed on the flames. She looked different in the firelight, softer, but not weak, just someone thinking too deeply. "You killed before," she said suddenly. Elijah looked up. Her voice wasn't accusing, it was just a fact she was placing between them. "Yes," he answered. She nodded. "Not your first." "No." She poked the fire with a stick. Sparks flew up, caught by the wind. "Mine neither," she said. Elijah watched her closely. Her arms had thin scars running up and down, lines that told stories he didn't know yet. "How long were you in that cage?" he asked. 2 months. Maybe 3. Hard to tell. She shrugged. "He gave me water. Food sometimes." "Why did he keep you alive?" Sabine lifted her eyes. Meeting his was something quiet and sharp. "Because I didn't scream." A coyote cried somewhere beyond the dark, a single high sound that faded into nothing. Sabine stood and walked to a small leather pouch, everything Harlan Pike had let her keep. She opened it, unwrapped a folded strip of cloth, and pulled out a brass medallion engraved with a strange symbol. Elijah leaned forward. "What's that?" "A reminder." "Of what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her dress and pulled out the folded scrap of paper he had seen her take from Pike's shelf. "That the list you mentioned?" he asked. "Yes." "Who's on it?" Quote. She looked at the fire, her face calm but her eyes burning with a different kind of heat. "Men who hurt girls like me. Men who built a world where pain was a lesson." "How many?" 10, she said. Pike was number 4. Elijah leaned back, letting the truth settle in. Sabine wasn't running, she was hunting. "What are you planning to do?" he asked. "I'm going to finish it." Elijah nodded slowly. "Then I'll help you." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I need a reason to wake up tomorrow," he said, "and I think you're it." She didn't smile, didn't blush, but something softened in her expression. Just a small shift, like a locked door clicking open a little. The next morning they left before sunrise, riding toward the Iron Range. Sabine led this time. She didn't explain how she knew the way, but her feet and eyes seemed to remember every broken trail. Elijah followed close, scanning the land for danger. By midday they reached a ruined mining settlement. Sabine crouched near a fire circle half buried under dirt. "This is where they brought us," she said quietly. Elijah knelt beside her. "Who?" "The ones before Pike," she said. "The men who first put me on the list." Quote. She stood and looked across the tree line, jaw tight. They were soldiers once. After the war fell apart, they vanished into the hills, called themselves the 10. "How many left?" Quote. 6. Her voice didn't break. Her hands didn't shake. She just spoke like she had already accepted the truth and carved it into her bones. They rode south to the salt flats where the air buzzed with heat. Sabine pointed toward a far ridge. "He camps up there. Darrell Nix. Used to be a scout. He'll know we're coming." They circled wide, moving low. As they neared the ridge, smoke drifted from a fire pit and a mule grazed nearby. To Elijah, it looked too quiet, too easy. Sabine whispered, "He's never alone." Before they got 20 feet, a shotgun leveled at Sabine from the mouth of a tent. "Evenin', Sabine," Darrell Nix said as if greeting an old friend. His smile was crooked, his eyes were cold. "I knew you'd come. Pike sent word before you put him down." Elijah stepped out, rifle raised. "Drop the gun." Nix didn't move. "You must be the widower. Heard you're carrying death in your eyes." Quote. Elijah's jaw tightened. Nix sighed. "I didn't touch her, not like the others, I just watched." "You think that makes you better?" Sabine asked. "No," he answered, "but it makes me different." Sabine stepped forward. "No, it makes you a coward." The shotgun fired, but the shot wasn't his. Elijah pulled the trigger first. The bullet tore through Nix's shoulder and spun him backward. He dropped the gun, screaming, crawling toward the tent. Sabine was already there. She pinned his hand with her boot, leaned down, and pressed the knife to his throat as he begged. She didn't speak. She didn't tremble. Elijah turned away while the screams echoed across the salt. When the sound stopped, she stood with blood on her hands and a blank, quiet look on her face. The camp burned behind them before they left. They traveled 2 days more and arrived at a place called Mercy's Nest, a brothel hidden in a small valley. Sabine walked inside without fear. Elijah followed. Clove, the woman behind the bar, nodded at Sabine like she recognized a ghost. "You're late," she said. "He's been expecting you." "Kanan Raj?" Sabine asked. Clove pointed to the back room. "Go on." Elijah kept close. Kanan sat beside a hearth playing a banjo like it was holy. He looked up and smiled when he saw Sabine. "Well," he said, "hell finally opened its door." She stepped toward him. "You killed that girl by the river." He smiled wider. "I kill many girls." That one screamed too much. Sabine moved first. Elijah shot the knife from Kanan's hand. She took care of the rest. Her fists, not her blade. Slow, steady, like she was taking back each stolen piece of herself. When it was done, she stepped out with blood on her knuckles. "He was number 6, she said. They left Mercy's Nest and rode into the dark hills. The list was 5 now, and every mile made the silence between them heavier. The road into the hollow lands felt like riding into the mouth of something ancient. The air turned cold, dry, and thin as they crossed into country where even the wind moved quiet. Elijah rode with one hand on the reins, the other near his rifle. Sabine walked beside the horse, steps steady, eyes sharp. She had grown thinner these past days, not weak, just stripped down to something fierce and simple. Revenge had burned away anything soft. They slept beside dead trees and broken stones. At night, Elijah carved small marks into the stock of his rifle. Not names, not dates, just lines. Sabine never asked what they meant. She seemed to understand there were things a person kept hidden until the right moment. On the 4th day, they saw smoke rising from the west, thick and black. Not a cooking fire, not a camp, something worse. They reached it by dusk. It had been a chapel once. Now it was half burned, the roof broken, the walls charred. Inside, bodies hung from the rafters. 7, maybe 8. Their hands were nailed to the pews. A word was written in ash across the altar. Witness, Sabine stepped inside without fear. Elijah followed, rifle drawn. A voice came from the shadows behind the pulpit. Calm. Deep, steady. I remember you. A man stepped forward, broad shoulders, white hair pulled into a rope, scars across both cheeks like tribal marks. His eyes did not hold fear, only a quiet was worn into him. Lucian Hale, Sabine said. He nodded. I thought you'd never come. Elijah kept his rifle raised. Lucian didn't flinch. You do this? Elijah asked, nodding to the bodies. Lucian looked at the dead men. Yes. Why? Sabine asked. Because I remember, Lucian said. I remember what we did to you and to the others. I've been trying to balance the scale ever since. Sabine stared at him. Her face stayed still, but something inside her twisted. Pain, rage, confusion. He had been one of the 10. One of the monsters. Yet here he was, burying the others. You think this fixes anything? She asked. No, Lucian said. But it's a start. He stepped closer, slow, careful. I can take you to the next one, Thatcher Vale. He hides in the basalt country. You won't find him without me. Sabine looked at Elijah. Elijah watched her. Finally, she nodded. They left the ruined chapel with no prayers, no words. Just smoke behind them. Lucian walked beside Elijah, while Sabine rode ahead. She doesn't trust you, Elijah said. She shouldn't, Lucian replied. Neither should you. What changed you? Elijah asked. Lucian's eyes stayed on Sabine's back. She didn't scream, even at the end. That broke something in me. They traveled 3 days through basalt fields where the earth rose in sharp black ridges. On the 4th morning, they reached a small cabin built into a cliffside. A ladder hung from a narrow ledge. He's in there, Lucian said, but he'll hear you coming. Sabine turned to Elijah. I want him alive. I'll try, he said. Sabine climbed first. Elijah followed. Inside the cabin, the air felt wrong, heavy, still. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars holding cloudy shapes Elijah didn't want to look at. Thatcher Vale sat in a rocking chair with a rifle across his knees. His hair hung long and greasy. His eyes were pale and empty. You took your time, he said. Sabine said nothing. Vale smiled. You were my favorite. Elijah fired first. The bullet struck the wall as Vale dove aside. Sabine rushed him, blade flashing. He slashed back, cutting the air close to her face. Elijah kicked his rifle away. Sabine struck low, cutting deep. Vale screamed and fell. Say my name, Sabine said. Vale spat blood. I don't remember. She made him remember. Slow, cold, final. When she stepped back, she was shaking, but only from breath, not fear. Lucian climbed up after, eyes heavy. You got what you came for. No, Sabine said. Not yet. There were 2 names left, and both were still breathing. They burned the cabin as they climbed down. Ash drifted in the wind behind them. They moved northeast into colder land. Snow fell by morning. Lucian guided them to a hunter's hut where they slept one night. Sabine did not sleep. She paced until dawn. Who's next? Elijah asked. Myron Vetch, she said. He wasn't cruel. He was worse. They reached Widow's Spine after 4 days. A broken hospital sat in the valley, walls ruined, windows patched with cloth. Inside, girls moved like ghosts. 16 of them. Eyes bruised. Voices gone. Sabine passed through the hall without stopping. Elijah followed. At the back, behind a curtain, Myron Vetch sat at a makeshift desk. Glasses on. A silver cross on his chest. His face softened when he saw her. Sabine, he whispered. I prayed you survived. She drew her blade. I helped you, he said. I offered comfort. No, she said. You offered lies. One clean strike ended it. They burned the hospital after sending the girls away. One kissed Sabine's hand. One handed her a drawing. Sabine stared at the smoke. He wasn't the worst. No, Elijah said. That leaves one. The first. Sabine said. The one who started it all. Do you know where he is? Elijah asked. Her jaw tightened. I always have. They rode west through burned orchards and dry plains until they reached Deadwash. A small house stood alone on the salt, quiet, clean. A lantern glowed in the window. Sabine knocked. A man in his 50s opened the door. Ordinary face, calm eyes, a ring on his finger. Hands too clean for this land. Elijah saw the truth in those eyes. Sabine, he said softly, it has been a long time. She stepped inside. Elijah followed. Do you remember my name? He asked. Malcolm, she said. Malcolm Clean. He nodded. So what happens now? You die. He sighed like he had expected it. We tried to protect the world. We tried to make it cleaner. You made nightmares, she said. Art always offends, he answered. She moved fast. The knife went straight under his ribs. He fell to the floor, coughing blood. I thought you would scream, he whispered. I did, she said. You just didn't listen. They burned the house, journals, maps, everything. At sunrise, they sat on a ridge, watching the fire die. There's no more names, Elijah said quietly. Sabine looked at the smoke. Then why doesn't it feel done? Quote, Elijah took her hand, not to comfort, but to remind her she was still alive. When the fire cooled, they mounted their horses and rode east. Not toward anything. Just away. The list was ash. But they were still breathing.